You're listening to a podcast from thespoilist.com. Welcome to First Contact, the Citizen Kane of three men sitting talking about Star Trek without much purpose. I'm Andrew.
I'm James.
And I'm Alex.
This time we are talking about The Mind's Eye. It had a story by Ken Schafer and Rennie Echevarria, a teleplay by Rennie Echevarria, and was directed by David Livingston. It first aired the week of May 27th, 1991. James, what is this one all about?
Geordi is on his way to Risa on a shuttle when he's suddenly attacked by Romulans, which came as a great relief to the computer as Geordi was just getting started on his seduction moves. The Romulans use his visor interface to show him any images they choose to program his brain to put him under their control. Meanwhile, the Enterprise is dealing with the uprising on a Klingon colony, with the Empire accusing the Federation of supplying weapons to the rebels. But all is not as it seems, as while the weapons are Starfleet in appearance, they have apparently been charged by Romulan power sources. Could these plots come together in some kind of assassination attempt on a high-ranking Klingon in order to destabilize peace? Wait, when did Star Trek VI come out? This all seems very familiar.
Well, Alex, you've never seen this one before. What did you think of it?
Yeah, it's not bad. I to temper that, it's not top tier, but it's better than fine. It's a pretty good episode in the overall run of this series. It has its moments where it's a little dragged out, but I think the overall mystery is played out relatively well over the course of its runtime. I just think the ending is mildly fumbled.
Fair. Yeah, I would say it's really solid. I guess Manchurian Candidate kind of episode, sort of a generic idea. Someone is reprogrammed to become an assassin. Yeah, but good, and it's quite strange this because it does feel sort of big-ish in terms of stakes. You've got Romulans on this side and you've got Klingons on the other side, but we're going off to some small little war. It's both like galactic stakes, but actually done on a small scale, which works for the show. It's interesting, and it's interesting to kind of use the two big Star Trek villains in this way.
Though the only problem is, of course, that although it has a mystery at its core, it does kind of flag the answer to that mystery by having the Klingons there. Because you see it and you go, right, well, it's probably the Klingon behind it. That guy that's in it this episode and seems to be a major part of this episode that we haven't seen before, he's probably going to be... But yes. Oh, yeah, obviously the Klingon did it.
Well, I think up until it's actually revealed, which I think is round about halfway through, that the Klingon ambassador is the bad guy, you kind of feel like maybe Geordi is there to kill him.
I mean, I'll be honest, I had completely forgotten, and I thought it was the other one. And I've seen this before, so I think fairly effective as a mystery plot. Obviously, it's going to be one of however
it's
many
be one
people.
Of the two of them.
Yeah, so it's fairly solidly effective. I don't really mind that though, because as you say, when it's done well and you've got an episodic format, it has to be something that's introduced early on. It's like, oh, we trust this guy. He's a good guy. He's come to Picard and said some words. Oh, but the other one's angry. So yeah, obviously it probably is going to be the one that they make you invest in a little bit more.
Some of that's more forgivable as well because of the fact that it is just one episode, and we are already talking essentially about 40 minutes of television here. It becomes a bit more difficult when it's more long running and people invest their wild theories. Like, I don't think if it had turned out to be the one that I didn't think it did in this series, in this episode, I would have cared.
Yes, it's certainly no line of duty.
Do you not think that the stakes are a bit too big, considering there's no consequences for the Romulans? They do a similar story to this in Enterprise, and it basically sparks the Romulan War and the creation of the Federation. They kind of do this in Undiscovered Country, and it eventually leads to peace between the Federation and the Klingons. Here, it's just kind of completely ignored. The Klingons don't even care that the Romulans are trying to make the Klingons and the Federation enemies again.
Well, they don't really believe it up until the end, and then at the end it's, well, maybe, but we'll take him away and we'll find out in secret, meaning that there's no dramatic resolution.
But again, it's... I mean, maybe it's part of the plot. I mean, there's never any doubt, really, even in the mystery, the Federation's supplying to the rebels, and it's like they take, they do 5 minutes of testing of the weapon, they go, no, this is Romulan. So that particular stake doesn't really feel like it's going to be that. The rebellion on this planet that we never see as well is also, just one of those dramatic Star Trek devices, like, thousands of lives are at stake. Can we see them? Nope. What about a matte painting? Maybe you can see a matte painting. And okay, fine. I do like that it's sort of introducing an element of the Klingon Empire being an empire, which we never seem to see. It has many planets in it, some that have been conquered probably a long time ago. That's interesting politically, but it is a case of just the Romulans show up and do something arch for no particular reason, which is just their MO, I guess. You don't get a sense of, like, going through the series, this being like part of a bigger agenda. It just seems, we've decided to do this week. Get the guy with the visor.
They're very much like the Master in Doctor Who. Why are you doing this? I don't know. I'm a toe rag.
What do you think? Like, Geordi, the start of the episode, the loneliest man in the world, in a shuttle which I'm convinced has no toilet facilities. I
kind of convinced that had he reached Riser, he would have just been the person stood at the edge of the dance floor, just sort of dancing on his own and then just sort of gradually shuffling out the door with some sort of extravagant cocktail in his hand.
The Hawaiian shirt on. And then, had he actually gone, and if people would ask, did anyone see this guy at this conference? And everyone would go, no, didn't see him. No idea what you're talking about.
I mean, surely the thing that should have been the telling as to whether Geordi actually went to Riser or not is that he makes out that he was active and doing all these things and was the life and soul of the party and had someone that was actually genuinely interested in him that wasn't artificial.
It's harsh, but true. What I want to know is, Risa, the love and party planet, is it home to a number of conferences, and what are the facilities like?
Well, I mean, yeah, previously I had received the impression that it was sort of half Spanish resort holiday and half orgy planet. Whereas Geordi's making it out like it's some sort of massive planet-wide leisure centre.
From what we see in other episodes, planet-wide leisure centre sounds quite accurate to me.
So it's a bit like a giant Centre Parks.
Yeah.
Good God.
He didn't bring a Horgon back, which should have raised suspicions immediately. I'm sure Riker asked for one, having worn his previous out.
I mean, you get the sense that he's not going to be life and soul, considering his choice of entertainment on board that shuttle.
Hey, he asked for a Latin beat, didn't he?
Can I have a Latin beat? No, a Spanish guitar. Yeah.
It's interesting how generic the requests are. I don't want a specific song. I don't want to hear this artist. I just want to hear whatever rights-free music you have available, computer.
He hasn't linked the Spotify accounts to the computer.
It's like me asking Google Home to play something and it just comes out with some old shit that I haven't asked for.
But and then the entertaining games that the enterprise computer can play.
Well, they're like Google Home as well. That's like when I ask you, do you want to play a game? Yes. 20 questions? No. What the f*** do you want to do that? At least the music stuff, there's at least the chance of a humorous misunderstanding when our son asks Google to show him Daleks and it says, sure, playing Darling XXX on YouTube. Every time.
Marvellous. But I quite like the kind of torture sequence. Something I say often. But I like that when they go inside his head and these Romulans just hate Chief O'Brien.
The writers hate Chief O'Brien.
O'Brien must suffer.
I did enjoy the way that after he's been shot, mind if I join you? Yeah, I mean, if anything, you've done us a favour.
He just wouldn't stop going on about cabbages.
I just like to imagine that wasn't a result of the hallucination, and that it would genuinely have been their reaction.
No, this is a completely accurate scenario.
Well done, you've programmed him to kill Chief O'Brien. We didn't tell him to do that.
When he is released back to the Enterprise by the Romulans, and Troy is trying to pump him for information on what he was up to see if he was pumping his own information. I mean, considering the reputation that planet has, would you really ask? Seems a bit much, bit personal.
I mean, would you not be ashamed to tell people you were going there? It just all feels a bit seedy to me. And I get that, obviously, anyone can go there. If Picard goes there, then it's culturally acceptable. But it's sort of like...
He was tricked into going, wasn't he?
I think he was basically ordered to go, yeah, as you know, because he didn't get any rest. And it's just like, that wouldn't be my idea of a holiday, going to that particular planet. And I don't think that would be Picard's. He's much happier in a set of old ruins.
Depending on the clientele, he could very much be in a set of old ruins. Actually, thinking about it, they said that the planet is climate controlled as well, didn't they? So it is just like a massive centre parks under a big dome.
Oh, we see it in Deep Space Nine.
One of the worst episodes of Deep Space Nine, where Worf basically joins a terrorist organisation to make the weather worse on Risa.
Brilliant.
And he knocks over a table of Horgons.
I guess the other element is the investigation, the E-band emissions that are coming in. Data notices some emissions. We see some wave patterns on a screen. It's all very exciting. We don't know where they're coming from, but it turns out they're coming from inside the ship.
In some respects, I feel like this is the weaker part of the episode, because as it is with any mystery like this, when you kind of know at least part of the answer, and then we're hanging around waiting for everyone else to catch up, it becomes more interesting when the assassination element is pushed forwards. But when it's literally just Geordi tipping a drink over Chief O'Brien, it's a little bit, alright, okay. We've got another 10 minutes of this.
That I find so weird. Like, I get why it's there. And it's just like, someone would have seen that. It's in a big public bar, and he's just so it's not like he trips over or anything like that. It's just, I'm going to walk up to you and pour this over you. Even O'Brien would have surely sensed him there.
Surely he realised that it was being poured. That wasn't a trick. It was very clearly a pour. How subservient is O'Brien to the power system that he isn't able to say, what do you think you're doing? He just poured it straight all over me. That was a terrible accent. You just poured it straight over me. Instead, he has to go, oh, no, sir, no, it's fine. I'll go and change. No. If anything, I'll hit myself.
I thought there was clear annoyance in his delivery. It was a passive aggressive response.
No, there is, but it's just he just seems not very able to. I don't know. A clear victim of the power system of the military.
I imagine that's exactly what it's like on starships. Officers are always going and pouring drinks over the non-com officers, and they just go, "Oh, sorry about that. I knocked your drink there, sir." Do you think though they wrote that just so that Colmini had to have a drink poured over him 80 times in the space of a day?
Oh, sorry. We'll shoot it again, and this time I'll turn the camera on.
What am I like? Oh, sorry, we've got LeVar's in the wrong uniform. Oh, we thought he wore red. Sorry, we'll do that again.
Devon, this is a red drink. I very clearly stated blue. Although if we could get a variety of different colours, we'll see what looks best in shot. You okay with that, Colm? Yeah, you're good. Yeah, you're doing good, buddy. You're doing good. No, you don't need a towel.
No, you're not changing that uniform. It's not visible on camera. It's fine. Actually, could we add more ice to that drink?
Actually, yeah, that uniform doesn't really show that it's particularly damp.
Maybe they didn't even pour it on him. Maybe he just poured it behind. And the magic of television made us think that.
It's a truly wondrous thing.
And you see, it was that getting poured on acting that got him his own spin-off.
Yeah, like I do agree with what you said, and that the plot is drawn out a bit. So we have the sequence in the cargo bay with Geordi programming a transporter to send weapons down to the planet, and then him and Data investigate that thing that just happened that we also saw.
So wait, who sent the weapons originally?
Well, the Romulans, I guess, made fake weapons and then put them on the planet somewhere. But this was the actual weapons.
I thought they were genuine weapons that had been taken and then been tampered with, which would still raise the question of where did they get them to start with? Because they basically said, oh no, they're superficially correct. It's just when you get into the internals, they're not. I don't know.
I think they insinuate that they're replicated to Starfleet design, but they've been powered by Romulan energy.
So they're more efficient, basically. Although I feel like we did this before in a Klingon episode where weapons were supplied by the Romulans and it was a different crystal that was powering it to prove it wasn't Federation/Klingon weapons. Does that sound familiar? The one where Kalar got killed?
Possibly, but anytime we have the words Klingons or crystals come up, my brain starts to wander.
Oh, remember the time crystals in Star Trek Discovery? Time crystals.
No. When was that?
Oh, that's in season 2. They go to the Klingon planet where they're the guardians of the time crystals.
Yeah, the main thing okay.
And then they flash forward to Pike's accident. Oh, the baby becomes an adult in the space of 10 minutes.
I think I blocked that series out, or the middle of it out.
You know what we've overlooked?
What have we overlooked?
LaForge's double that went to Riser in his place.
Yeah.
Yes! That look nothing like him.
Is it racist?
I think it might be a bit racist.
It's just like when they'd have a double of William Hartnell in Doctor Who, and the Daleks have created an android. It's completely indistinguishable from it's a completely different man. It's not even the same. They don't even look vaguely similar. They're both wearing the same costume.
Imagine if he bumped into somebody who knew Geordi. Imagine if he bumped into Leia Brahms.
I would have loved the episode where that double was just who turned up on the Enterprise. And, hi, oh no, sorry, who are you? I'm Geordi. And then just play that out for the entire rest of the episode. And just gaslighting the crew.
But that's the thing. He's going to an artificial intelligence seminar, presumably being the man who works with the only sentient android in the Federation. He might be quite well known in these circles. I don't know. What do you think of our Klingon characters in here? We've got Kel, who's the ambassador, who seems to like playing all sides, and Vag, I guess, who is the sort of angry ruler of a planet who's just like, oh, the Federation at it again.
Vak is just generic Klingon.
Yeah, there's one standard and one who's not particularly Klingonish. Shaken Vak is very much just your standard Klingon, and then the other one isn't really very particularly Klingon at all, but then he's being duplicitous, so, well, maybe therefore he is, but then even then, the Klingons generally aren't duplicitous in that manner. They're a bit sort of more upfront and crap at it.
I was kind of thinking, is Kel a Romulan in disguise? But they never confirm that. So I would assume that he is just a Klingon. So is he a Klingon who's undergone some sort of brainwashing? I don't really get his motivations.
I assumed that it's, and this is purely an assumption because it's not stated in the episode, was that it was a Klingon that wasn't happy with the Klingons being in alliance with the Federation, and to try and end that, used this incredibly convoluted scheme. But, I mean, this is part of the problem with the ending of the episode. The ending is fumbled. And that's exactly one way that it is. That and the fact that they just leave during the dramatic resolution. That's not great.
I mean, I guess there's a lot kind of to say about the ending, because it's obviously Data is doing this investigation because he's worked out that it's probably Geordi, because it's the brainwave patterns that he works out are being transmitted, and what could possibly receive those? Fine. And then he goes and does rather than just saying, I've got my suspicions, he goes and does a very prolonged investigation on the shuttle, gets one piece of evidence, goes, okay, right, oh, that seems to confirm that, and then gets another piece of evidence, and then doesn't like put out a ship-wide alert or anything, just contacts one person to tell about it. It's obviously ticking clock, nick of time, we have to get to the point where somebody has to tackle someone with a weapon, but it also seems not particularly helpful or realistic in this scenario.
I suppose if you have to go around the houses to try and defend it, you go, oh, well, he's a logical mind and therefore he has to have complete evidence. But I mean, that is me just bullshitting on the fly to try and find a reason for it. It would probably have been more effective to have instigated some of that earlier. So during the earlier boring bits where stuff is all of this is happening, and we're watching Geordi messing stuff up. Who could be behind this? And you just go, yeah, all right, okay, let's get on with it. You know, if you intersperse that with Data on his trail, that might actually have been a way of livening up the middle of the episode. But the fact it's all done at the end, you know, that whole ending is still sort of, it's good, it's gripping, but yeah, I can't help but feel that if you just shifted the pieces around a little bit, it might have worked a little better.
It's almost, do you want Geordi to shut off communication systems so Data has to run to get him? I mean, there's ways around this to make it maybe a little more dramatically satisfying.
Have a confrontation between the two of them prior to that, where Geordi realises Data's onto him, incapacitates him somehow, and then it's a race against time for Data to relay the message to detain Geordi. Rather than just sending a message over the combadge system to Worf, because I mean, I have a problem with the combadge system as a means of communication anyway, in that it's really not very private. If you're trying to say, I think there may be someone who wants to kill us, and then that message is being relayed loudly from someone's nipples. You know, it's this is supposed to be the most professional military organisation in existence at this point, and yet they have not worked out the means of private secret communication.
Well, in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, or certainly in the novelization of Star Trek: The Motion Picture, the communicators are embedded in their skulls, and so it looks like you're talking to yourself.
Christ. At what point do they do that? At birth?
I mean, I think it was a recent development. I think there's a bit about Kirk having resisted this, but then it had to. But I mean, there's all sorts of weird stuff in the motion picture novelization, which I would highly recommend.
Who's the writer on it?
Gene Roddenberry.
Okay, that figures.
Yeah, so that ending, and then I didn't really understand, when Worf tries to go and grab Geordi and the Klingons stop him. Is that because they think he's trying to assassinate, or because I don't know, they are in on it?
It's not clear, and it would be better just to not be there.
Well, the guards are between Worf and Vach. So it seems like, from their perspective, that Worf is trying to get to Vach.
Although he's clearly not heading for Vach.
Yeah.
It's just... it's a shame that so much here is just off. It's not far away from being fine. It's just an array of bizarre decisions right at the denouement.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is pretty effectively done. It's not perfect. You're not going to say, well, this is one of the all-time greats. It's just really decent and solid and fine. But it is perhaps the limitations of, we're sort of implying a Klingon civil war, and we've got galactic stakes, but it all actually has to be resolved in 45 minutes, and it's not satisfying from a character point of view, because Geordi will, again, be absolutely fine next week.
Although the ending was actually, in some respects, remarkably similar to the Line of Duty ending. With, I'm not guilty, you're clearly guilty. In that case, I demand asylum. The difference was that I liked the Line of Duty finale. Yeah. I mean, I like that bit, and I liked Picard's turnaround on it, but I did feel that the Klingons going, well, we'll take him away and investigate it ourselves, felt very anticlimactic, because especially, they're going to take him away and look into it. Well, let's say Picard was lying, and and for whatever reason, his shifty behaviour was completely normal, and then they discover it and they go, oh, so it wasn't us, it was Picard. Oh shit, we just let him get away.
And then do they get down to the planet and go, look, does anyone know what an E-band transmitter looks like? Anyone?
To be fair, at that point, they did still have 3 Klingon warbirds surrounding the Enterprise. So I would have thought that they would confirm that Picard wasn't behind it before they let the Enterprise go.
But even then, if they just sort of zoomed away, and then there was a chat between Picard and Riker, and then they looked on a view screen and just saw the birds of prey just sort of slinking away without a message. I assume they've searched the ambassador. Even that would have been a bit more satisfying.
Really, from what we know about Klingons, it's a bit morbid, really, because Picard knows that the ambassador is going to get tortured and killed.
But, he respects Klingon traditions.
Does the Prime Directive come into play there? Does he need to let them kill the ambassador?
Oh, we're going back to where we were with Half a Life again.
But they're not part of the Federation. They're allies with the Federation, so they can't interfere. Surely.
Oh, well. And then I guess the actual ending is then Geordi having talk therapy with Troi, and she uses her very clever techniques to say, but actually, what were you doing? That
scene felt so pointless.
I like it in that it at least implied that Geordi wasn't just fine now. And it's like Dr. Crusher waved her magic wand over it, that there was actually a process involved in it, even though they don't really know what was wrong with him. But
wait, not true. And the idea of deprogramming is fine. But the problem is that the memories that Geordi is particularly aggrieved about is the fact that he didn't actually go for dinner. Which feels pretty low stakes.
You know what would have been a great ending? if Geordie went to 10 forwards and it was all just empty, and then Chief O'Brien came in and he sat down and he said, "Oh, Lieutenant Commander, you don't mind if I play a bit of music, do you?" And then he asked the computer for something with a Latin beat. And then Geordie you just see that reaction on his face. He remembers.
And then O'Brien throws a drink in his face and goes, "You don't mess with the chief."
I would like that if that was his catchphrase.
And then Geordie shoots him.
Lovely. Well, we've certainly talked about that episode a bit. Let's see if there's anything else to say in Quickfire.
Quickfire.
You might think that the shadowy Romulan sounded a lot like Denise Crosby, but it was actually played by Deborah Dilly. That person in the shadows, it was Deborah Dilly.
Deborah Dilly?
I'm telling you, that's who it was. That's who it was in the shadows. But it did sound like Denise Crosby.
I mean, I thought it sounded like Denise Crosby, yeah. Weird.
It did, but you know, she's not credited.
No,
You
Deborah
know,
Dilly is.
Deborah Dilly is the shadowy.
Did Deborah Dilly have any other roles in her career?
You know, I'll look that up. I'll see what Deborah Dilly did.
What did Deborah Dilly do?
Oh, Deborah Dilly was a regular stand-in.
A regular stand-in.
She played a Borg at one point.
Oh, we've all done that.
She's played a Vulcan maiden in The Search for Spock.
A hard-working actor.
How many people can honestly say they've played a Vulcan, a Klingon, a Romulan, a human, and a Borg, all in Star Trek? Not many, I bet. And she was in Babylon 5.
This is the first episode in which Majel Barrett is credited as the computer, which is a massive oversight because she has been playing the computer for quite a while.
So this was written at roughly the same time that Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, was also written. For some reason, nobody in the writer's room thought to ask the writers of Star Trek VI what they were writing about. You know, it may have helped if somebody on Star Trek VI said, you know, we're doing a Klingon assassination plot. You know, that may have helped, you know, if somebody in the Star Trek VI team sent a message over, you know, don't do the Manchurian Candidate. That wouldn't be recommended. And particularly, don't do an episode where a Klingon ambassador is going to get murdered and the title is going to be derived from Shakespeare. Probably not a good idea.
I mean, and Worf's in both of them as well.
An ancestor of Worf.
So, checking in once again with the ceaselessly cantankerous cesspit that is the Nitpicker's Guide. Nothing really of interest on this episode, but by which I mean, of course, nothing where we can laugh at Phil Farron. But he does say in plot oversights, when the show opens, LaForge flies through space in a shuttle. The stars move slowly, so he must be travelling at subwarp speeds. LaForge asks the computer how long until he reaches the destination. The computer replies 3 hours. And I know I've beaten this dead horse, but this is another great example. For the sake of argument, let's say LaForge is halfway to the planet when he asks his question. Let's say it takes 6 hours to get to the planet from where he started. How long would it take the Enterprise to fly at warp 7 and drop him off? 33 seconds? Well, if you don't believe me, see the calculations in the Samaritan Snare. I'm definitely not going to do that, Phil. I've got so many better things to do with my time.
The shuttlecrafts were warp capable, so you know they were travelling at warp. Maybe it had to stop and have a rest.
Just because you can get somewhere in a car in 30 seconds doesn't mean you won't take a 5-minute walk. the Enterprise is busy doing other things. It's not a taxi service. Maybe LaForge isn't the only person that's got to be somewhere.
Maybe they just wanted him off the ship.
I guess this episode sort of serves to remind us about Worf's dispute with Duras, in that they have a conversation about that, which is kind of playing out an arc which will come up again in the season finale, which isn't far away now. It's a Klingon episode, Alex. You like those?
Oh, goody.
I wonder if Deborah Dilly will make a return in that episode.
Oh, I can't wait to find out.
You know, I did think it was fine, all these similarities to Star Trek 6, but then I read that Ambassador Kell is wearing the same sash that the Klingon ambassador wears in Undiscovered Country. That's too many similarities. It's not on.
Well, thank you for listening once again. We will return soonish with In Theory. Looking forward to that one. But for now, goodbye.
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 Or maybe he had to transport something there to take to the conference that couldn't go at high warp speeds. We just don't know.
Who ordered the 100 tubs of Vaseline?
If you go to warp, they just go everywhere.